For thousands of years, there has been one undisputed king of value: gold. But, in just the last 16 years, a digital challenger has burst onto the scene, born from pure code and cryptography. So this is that story: an ancient king versus a digital disruptor, a battle for the future of wealth itself.
And that really brings us to the big question we're tackling here. When it all comes down to it, what's going to matter more for the future of money? Is it the thousands of years of trust we have in history, or the raw disruptive power of brand new technology?
All right, let's get into it. Here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at gold's incredible reign. Then, we'll track Bitcoin's explosive rise. After that, we'll put them in the ring, head-to-head. We'll even try to peek 100 years into the future before we attempt to reach some kind of final verdict.
So first up, let's talk about the reigning champion. We're talking about an asset that has literally defined wealth and power for empires, for kingdoms, and for entire nations for over 2,000 years.
What this timeline really shows us is gold's unbelievable stability. Think about it. For 2 millennia, from the Roman Empire all the way to the modern day, it's been a reliable place to store value. Even after we left the gold standard back in '71, it's been the go-to safe haven in any crisis, like the huge financial meltdown in 2008. This is the story of an asset that has truly stood the test of time. Now let's pivot to the challenger. Bitcoin's story isn't one of ancient scrolls and empires. No, it's a story of a digital revolution, one that was born directly from the ashes of that 2008 financial crisis.
And what a contrast to gold's steady, long journey. Bitcoin's story is just pure, explosive growth. In a little over a decade, it went from being this tiny niche experiment to a globally recognized asset. You had these key moments, like the banking crisis in Cyprus, or the recent ETF approvals that just catapulted it right into the mainstream.
Okay, this is where things get really, really interesting. For most of history, gold was completely unrivaled, but since 2009, they've been competing in this same arena. So let's look at the tail of the tape.
All right, so since Bitcoin showed up, gold has posted a solid, very respectable 255% return. And that's exactly what you'd expect, right? Steady, reliable performance from an asset that's been around forever.
But in that exact same period, Bitcoin delivered a return that is so massive it almost sounds fake: 111 billion%. That's not just growth, that's a complete paradigm shift. It's the kind of thing you see with a brand new digitally native asset class.
Just to put that into perspective for you, the challenger's performance was over 44 million times greater than the king's. Seriously, let that number sink in. That is hands down the single greatest return for any asset in financial history. And this chart right here, it just visualizes that incredible power shift perfectly. Back in 2009, a single Bitcoin was worth a tiny, tiny fraction of an ounce of gold. Today, it can buy you over 32 ounces. The tables haven't just turned, they've been completely flipped over.
Okay, so the past is pretty clear, but as any investor knows, past performance is no guarantee of future results. So what could the next 100 years possibly look like? Well, let's see what the models are projecting.
Looking ahead, we're seeing basically 3 potential futures. And what's really wild is that even in the most conservative, careful scenario, Bitcoin's projected value is way higher than gold's. And as you get more optimistic, the potential upside for Bitcoin just becomes, astronomical. We're talking about projections that hit $1 billion for a single coin.
So let's just focus on that middle-of-the-road, moderate scenario for a second, the one many analysts think is the most likely. Okay, so we're looking at gold at a very healthy $90,000 an ounce. But Bitcoin, it's projected at $20 million per coin. That makes a single Bitcoin worth over 222 times more than an ounce of gold.
So, with these absolutely mind-bending numbers on the table, what are the core fundamentals that are really driving this thing? What are the strengths, the weaknesses, and, the actual probabilities here?
It really boils down to this classic trade-off. Gold's greatest strength is its history. It's unmatched, it's tangible, you can hold it, it's recognized everywhere, and it's sitting in the vaults of every central bank. But its risks are physical, like what if we start mining asteroids? And its growth potential is pretty slow. Now, Bitcoin's pros are all digital: a fixed supply that can never ever be changed, a network that nobody controls, and just massive growth potential. But its risks are digital too. A government could try to regulate it out of existence, or some future technology like quantum computing could potentially crack its code.
So, after all that, where does this leave us? Well, what's fascinating is that the most likely outcome isn't really a knockout victory for either one.
Most analysts are predicting a future of coexistence, where gold remains the traditional store of value and Bitcoin becomes its digital counterpart. But, and this is a big but, you can't ignore that second biggest slice. The risk of Bitcoin failing is still a very real possibility.
And that really leaves us with this final massive question. This battle between gold and Bitcoin. It's about way more than just charts and numbers. It's really a referendum on what we, as a society, actually choose to value. Is it the tangible, time-tested trust of history, or is it the absolute, verifiable, and unchangeable trust of pure mathematics? I guess the next century is going to give us the answer.